Toya Woodland, and I am seeking the Green Party endorsement for U.S. Representative in the 5th Congressional District here in Minnesota. And we're here today, and we're going to talk about Universal Basic Income. Hi, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Hey.
How you doing? Can you introduce yourselves and tell people a little bit about you? I am seeking the Green Party endorsement for U.S.
Okay, we can't hear you, Toya.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes, you got to stay put. Okay, you put? Okay. All right.
Hi.
So, just in case you guys didn't know who I am, my name is Michelle Gibson with Bob Rewards Club. It is an organization that specializes in Black-owned businesses, business development. And so we are working with Toya on her campaign for Congress, Toya Woodland for Congress for the 5th District. And today we also have some extra guests, which we have Lisa Savage. She's running for United States Senate for Maine for the Green Party, and also Liana Gayle, who is an activist with UBI, which is Universal Basic Income. And that is actually what we're going to be discussing today, Universal Basic Income. And then I'm just going to lead it off again, and Toya's going to kind of be narrating everything, how she kind of wants everything to go. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Toya.
Hi. Actually, I'm so glad to be here. I'm glad to see you ladies. And I would actually love to know more about the two of you. If you can introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I'm Lisa Savage. I'm a school teacher in Maine. I'm running for the U.S. Senate seat of Susan Collins under ranked choice voting. And I began to trying to get on the ballot as a Green. The rules in Maine make it literally impossible. So I unenrolled from the Green Party and got ballot access as an independent. So now I describe myself as an independent Green. And I'm running for, Medicare for all and a Green New Deal and a guaranteed minimum wage and the kind of policies that we've needed for years in this country. So thanks for having me on today.
Thank you. And Liane?
Yeah, so my name is Liana Gayle. I'm originally from Germany, and I used to be a scientist. And since 2012, I've been doing a lot of activism. I've been trying to find ways towards system change. I think it is really high time that the capitalist system has to go, the white supremacy has to go, patriarchy has to go. So I've been kind of looking for ways to achieve that. I've been in the leadership of the Green Party here in the Minnesota, but I have exited in 2015. I'm a little bit politically involved still, but I'm kind of looked for a first step towards system change. That's how I came to basic income about 5 years ago. I kind of thought it was kind of like a good way, a first step towards system change out of the capitalist system, when you kind of fulfill the basic needs of people and give them that time back, and kind of try to have a grassroots revolution from the bottom up. So I've been working on the basic income activism since about 5 years.
5 years. Okay, great. Hold on. Okay, sorry, there you go.
So I have some points here, and the first thing I really want to talk about is if we can tell the people what universal basic income and what does that mean for us in America and in our local economy.
Shall I do this or? So universal basic income, I've been finding, I used to be into living wages and stuff like that, and it's fairly straightforward, like $15 is better than $10, and it's good for everybody. But basic income is a completely different beast because it doesn't really have a definition, and it can be used by the right and by the left for very different purposes, So it's kind of like very confusing. And then like the definition of a universal basic income, it could be just a little money one time or a few times a year, or like earned income tax credit, like type where you kind of deduct it from the taxes, or it can be there to kind of fulfill your basic needs, so it's kind of really an instrument that can be used by a lot of different people and getting into very different directions. So what has been the predominant narrative around basic income here in the United States has been by the technologists, like maybe I've heard a lot about, oh, it's kind of everything gets automated and that's why everybody will be losing their jobs, truck drivers and, everything. And that's why we're kind of needing a basic income, so that is kind of the predominant narrative. But you can build a lot of different narratives around basic income. And I'm coming from a radical kind of viewpoint, which is still kind of very rare, not just in the United States, but globally.
Great.
So I was listening to some lectures today on, well, for the last couple of weeks on universal basic income, because I was curious how that would play out in our economy and how that would work for us. So I thank you for clearing that up. I also, would like to know the thoughts of you, Lisa. What do you think about, what's your stance on universal basic income?
Well, I think that we have failed to give people a basic income in this country. And I see the effects of that in the school where I teach all the time. The families are really struggling just to meet basic needs, even if they're lucky enough to have jobs, have a car, be able to work. It seems to me that universal basic income would be something sort of like, how when you give money to a good cause and they say, gosh, if you would give us $10 a month every month, that would help us a lot more than if you give us a one-time gift of $50 or $100. And the reason being that they can budget on it and they can plan. And it seems to me that I see people living in poverty spend so much time and energy just trying to cope. And they very often can't use their resources as well as somebody who's got a little cushion, because, they're always putting out fires, and it's always like the next emergency that they have to deal with to care for their families and be able to, get where they need to get to their job. So universal basic income is a really appealing idea to me. I've seen it to some extent in action in other countries. I don't think that the U.S. has done a super good job of it, although the earned income credit is a kind of a form of that. And I've also been reading about a form of UBI that would be like a negative income tax. Mm-hmm. In other words, I think the thing about UBI that appeals to me the least is I don't like the idea of giving millionaires and billionaires regular payments from the taxpayers. They don't need them. But anytime you have means tested, in other words, people have to qualify, there's a stigma attached, there's a lot of paperwork, bureaucracy. Negative income tax, I think, is a way of using our federal income tax filing each year to evaluate whether we would need money to come up to not the federal poverty level, which is way too low, but the real cost of living level. And so I am here really to learn more about UBI. So I thank you so much for inviting me and having some people that know more about it than I do. Thanks.
Thank you for. I want to play devil's advocate just for a moment, right? So UBI is is money that would be paid to everyone in America monthly, so that the cost of living, so that we can enjoy a real living environment where we no longer have to just merely survive from paycheck to paycheck, but we're able to have a woosah moment, so to speak. Correct? Now, for hundreds of years now, as an African American, a Native African American woman, I'm going to have to speak to the fact of reparations. Reparations have done the same thing for African Americans, for American descendants of slavery in this country. And as I see UBI being pushed so hard, why was it not that with the same force and the same energy, reparations for American descendants of slavery pushed to that same extent? I see that now that America sees the need for additional income, or for income like universal basic income, there was a great need for in the African American community especially with American descendants of slavery. I don't want, there's a lot of African Americans, but American descendants of slavery specifically, to have that 40 acres and a mule, so to speak, right? So we talk about impoverished communities, and usually when we talk about impoverished communities, we're usually talking about people of color, right? So,
not so much around here, but yes.
Yeah. So, so would that have been extinguished or not have came into play? Would there be a better economy had reparations been distributed to American descendants of slavery, and been able to put back into the community and back into the economy? Would there still be a need for UBI?
Well, that's an interesting theoretical what if question. I do believe in the need for reparations. I think that the white supremacist policies that have kept people of color from becoming homeowners, that have kept people of color from having equal access to health care, which has really affected their health and even their life expectancy. Maternal mortality and infant mortality outcomes are terrible for people of color in this allegedly wealthy country. And it was interesting that you mentioned Native, that you're also Native as well as African American. Maine had a famous law in the 70s where they gave land and some cash back to some of the Native groups in Maine. Unfortunately, it was all really polluted land that had been clear cut and had chemicals dumped in to the waterways for a long time.
I'm sorry, Lisa. Let me clarify that for you. When I say Native Black, I mean that my ancestors came over on ships that were slaves. Not that I'm a Native American. I am a Native Black. I am native to this country through my ancestors and being slaves here in this country. Not that I'm a Native American, but we are Native Blacks. Those of us, we're considered Native Blacks. All of us who are American descendants of slavery.
Wow.
Thank you for explaining.
Not all of us, though. No. My ancestors, when it's traced, goes back to the Seminoles, which were already here in Florida. Okay. So, and there's a whole tyranny and with that, but yeah, that's good that you're for reparations. I'm glad to hear that, and I hope that we can get more Americans to believe that, because my feelings about reparations is that it's a debt owed. Okay?
Yes, definitely.
I mean, it's a debt that's been paid. Now, this country has given reparations to other groups. Why hasn't it been for our group? And so that's the question, and that needs to be answered. I don't know if you guys know that Darnella did join us.
Is she there?
We can see
she
her.
Was.
She was.
But I think she's in the group, but her mic is still muted. So
one of the main questions that America always asks when it's asked about reparations is how it be funded. So what I will ask you, Liane, Ms. Gale, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
There? Is how will UBI be funded? How will universal basic? Where will the money come from?
I mean, there's kind of the Federal Reserve is able to kind of generate money. Money is like whether money is coming from shouldn't be the main question, because money is just kind of numbers in computers. You don't have to.
I love it, Leah.
I mean, you don't have to mine it from the ground like gold. It's not like diamonds or something like that. It's not like oil. It's just an agreement, basically. I mean, it's. And I'm my goal eventually is getting away from money altogether. When today's Earth Day, and nature works
happy Earth Day,
well without nature works very well without money. Why do people need to keep track of everything and then use money mainly to keep people down? So for me, like basic income, it is not so much about where the money is coming from and who gets what and how much. And it's mainly, for me, it's just a concept that we should care for each other. That anybody, like independent of citizenship, race, gender, any like background, everybody should have the basic necessities for life guaranteed. So this is kind of, for me, like a much wider discussion than just kind of like the money, but the money is the least of our problems, really, you know. So, and it's just kind of it is a matter of political will, and it's a matter of the narrative. The narrative we tell each other what life is about, how we treat each other, and what we're kind of doing to this earth too. You know, it's just kind of, that is kind of, for me, what it comes down to is controlling the narrative, you know.
Yeah.
And I think once you kind of are there, you know, that the agreement that we all deserve a dignified life and that we all wish for everybody to have that same dignified life without trashing the earth, if we just have this agreement, I think then we have already done a giant step to the future. You know, so I mean, for me, basic income is just a first step towards system change. And if we think it like that way, then I think there's a lot of these basic questions, you know, how much should everybody get? Where's the money coming from? Should millionaires get it? I mean, like all these are technicalities that should be just kind of like, those are not really the big questions. For me, the big question is, what are you doing with the basic income? You know, what is your goal? And that has been kind of a struggle here in the United States, because the moneyed interest, especially high tech, has been trying to kind of corner the whole narrative around basic income, because what they want is kind of this technological world with AI or whatever. This is not the future I see. I want to kind of have a world where we care for each other and actually come back to basics. You know, everybody is growing seeds now. They want to do their own gardening, baking bread. You know, this is kind of what people are clamoring for. And we are missing each other, you know. I mean, this is kind of like what is really important. So this is kind of like what for me, basic income is just a hook to get people talking, you know, about, you know, what's worth it. Another kind of issue is unpaid labor. I've been in, you know, like a lot of women are kind of doing so much work at home and for their communities, but it's not valued at all. It has, in our economic system, it has like zero value. And that is kind of why it is kind of disregarded. It's not being talked about, but still it's being expected, especially of women and like Black women doing also so much unpaid labor for their communities, you know. I mean, this is kind of just so much community work, you know. And it's such a big effort, and it's just kind of, it's like nothing. And those kind of activities actually need to be kind of being held up more, you know. So it's kind of reshifting our narrative. And basic income could be a first step towards such a society.
I love that answer. I love that answer. Because for years, people always, every time the issue of reparations has come up, the first thing they want to know, well, where is the money coming from? So I wanted to know if that was an issue that UBI was facing. Also, I want to pose this question to all four of you ladies. And welcome, Darnella. Hey, how are you, sweetie? It's good. Darnella is running for 65B, is it? And St. Paul
right.
State Representative.
Yes, ma'am.
Welcome. She'll be able to tell you more about that. But one of the questions that I have here, and I would like to pose to all four of you, is what do we say to those who are worried about UBI overshadowing reparations for American descendants of slavery, and how that has not been addressed yet? So what do we say to those people who are worried about this being something that would overshadow reparations? Or do you think that reparations should be made first and then UBI should be addressed? Or do you think that they should coincide one another? What would you say to those people? And Darnella, we haven't heard from you. What do you think?
I think that they should coincide. We are asking specifically for reparations for the harm that slavery and white supremacy and Jim Crow, those things are specifically for the descendants of African American descendants of slaves. And at the same time, I was just saying yesterday at our reparations video chat that we would require for basic universal basic income, because we want to have a leave no one behind factor to our quality of life. So, and I think that if they approve universal basic income at a higher level of income than welfare, then it confirms two things, that the cash assistance was too low. Well, three things. It was very necessary for our government to chime in on families that are less fortunate, and it confirms that universal basic income is just as well as it's welfare, but it sounds nice. That's how I want to put it.
Like SNAP.
So, yeah. So what we're doing is we're holding our government accountable. This money that they make is ultimately ours, and we should be able to access spending some of this money in our lifetime. It should not be just for Social Security and when you die and all that. No, no, there has to be a quality of life
Right.
that I think goes with income. And if they have the right to raise the cost of living and gas and every little trinket about life gets to be regulated somehow in favor of the government. And if it was in favor of the people, it wouldn't fluctuate as much. And then we could see that you can live like this on um, universal basic income. But right now the rents are up and down, and there's nothing is regulated. So we do need to be able to, and when we do ask for universal basic income, we want the cost of living to be at least 25% um, um, less. We want more money. We don't want them to set up a government where it's like we're always chasing, because
Yeah.
that to me
Let's discuss
causes
that
the
point
trauma.
and look at towards the end of this segment. But what I really want to know is like what I'm sorry, Kato, but what are you guys thinking, Lisa and Liane and Michelle? I don't know if Michelle left. About what do you say to those people who are going to ask that question? What about reparations first? So how will this overshadow reparations? Either one of you can jump in.
Well, reparations is a separate issue, isn't it? Universal basic
Yes.
income is about
hmm
taking care of everybody, and as Liane said, making our priority be taking care. Reparations, the root of that word is repair. There's a harm.
Okay.
There's been a generational economic harm to the descendants of slaves, and it's been intentional. The white power structure is not going to give up their power. They don't want to compete with everybody they have to compete with, so they're going to try very hard to keep people down. And that's exactly the reason why I think it's a really bad idea, because we're all together more intelligent if we all put our heads together than
Right.
any one group or any one person. And when we don't allow everyone in our society an equal access to like education and secure housing and good health care, we lose all this amazing talent and energy and beautiful thinking that we could be bringing to solve. We have some pretty big problems,
Yes, we
collectively
do.
humans. And it's very foolish to say, it's kind of like nepotism where the president has all his family there in the doing the jobs, and we're all looking at them going, but they're incompetent. Those
Right.
people aren't qualified to do those jobs. So we all lose when we artificially keep certain groups like the descendants of slave poor and can't not home owning and so forth. It's bad for everyone. So I would think, to me, reparations and UBI are two different discussions.
Yes, I think so too. But there are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, well, what about us? What about the wrong that was committed to American descendants of slavery? What about the wrong that the injustice of not having reparations, of never receiving our 40 acres and a mule, so to speak? Now, white America thinks that it's okay for them to receive a check monthly and without having to have gone through all of the things that American descendants of slavery have had to go through with slavery and Jim Crow and the continuous prison system, continually being marked by the police. Even myself as a minister, I am a minister, Minister Toya Woodland, and even myself in my collar have been pulled over by the police. And harassed, and I'm also a community activist and a community organizer. So I've had those things happen to me. So we continue to go through the trauma every day of our lives as Black people. And then all of a sudden, here's UBI. Now, UBI makes a lot of sense. I think that it makes total sense. I think that I wouldn't want to see it replace the welfare system, because I would want to see it in addition to the welfare system. Because how can you pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have a pair of boots first? So, and so we need to we would want to answer that question for people who will say, we're the Japanese got it, and these people got it, the Jewish got it, and now we're just giving out free money to white America and the rich to the rich, and so when will it be our turn? And people are going to ask that hard question if this becomes a reality. And as candidates of Congress, you and I, what do we say? Do we tell them that continue in the good fight for reparations, or have some faith that it might happen one day, or we're gonna just do this first and then something else is gonna come to pass? I'm what do you think?
So I think it's kind of the discussion that it shouldn't be just about the money, I think that's kind of what we have to get away from, just kind of the dollar figures or something, and then that what it means, it's just kind of seeing things in a larger context. So the Pope on Easter Sunday, he wrote a letter to activists kind of saying that the earth needs more healing, caring, and sharing, so I think reparation would kind of fall around this kind of concept of healing, so where kind of, I think everybody needs some different type of healing, but certain groups of the population need way more healing than others. And I think that's kind of where reparation is kind of coming in. It's kind of just kind of, what does it take? I mean, reparation also should be more than just kind of cash, I mean, it's kind of a very, like complex thing. So it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of the material necessities, yes, but I mean, it's kind of like way more. It also is about agency. It's kind of about having opportunities, and also kind of to have your opportunity to find your own way,
Right.
Not kind of like doing, what the white
But
cap
it's mainly about cash.
telling you.
Want
It's
them
also
to cut the check.
it's all about agency too, I mean, because the Black community probably wants to do things way differently than what the bosses kind of are wanting you to do, so I think it's a very complex issue beyond just kind of the monetary things. And maybe if we have the discussion away just kind of from how much the mechanistic kind of type of discussions, I think we might find better solutions. But I definitely see the need for healing, and the caring, this is kind of like basic income, but it's also like way kind of more. So, but I think those are kind of really separate issues, and it's not either or. I mean, if we just again have the discussion that everybody is deserving of their having their basic needs met without any precondition, so that's the Canadian activists actually don't call it basic income; they call it a guaranteed livable income. So that's all and that's kind of away again from the quantity, how much money. It's kind of more about housing should be covered, food should be covered, transportation should be covered, education should be covered, medical care should be covered, without any precondition or something, so that is kind of a discussion way from whatever poverty level is or welfare or something like that. That should be just kind of a given. So if we can bring up everybody at that. At the same time, they also say like the amount of this guaranteed livable income depends on what kind of public services they're available. Mm-hmm. So in the United States, if we have to cover transportation, education, medical care, like high housing prices, then we need a lot of money to cover all that. But if the government is kind of taking care of healthcare, education, making a public transportation system available, then suddenly you don't need that much cash anymore. So this is kind of, it really kind of depends on the whole outlook of how we're kind of dealing with these issues,
So I would from the more capitalist society into a more socialist society, when the government is paying all of our living wages, I mean, all of our living expenses, does that drive us more into socialism than capitalism? And
I mean, I wouldn't, like I'm focused on the care-centered economy. This is kind of like whatever it needs, whatever it needs, so that we can take care of ourselves, each other, and the planet. Whatever you may call it or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it starts with the empowerment of everybody, that everybody feels safe, everybody feels cared for. I think then it kind of really, you start empowering people and they come up with solutions. It's kind of a liberation of some sort. I don't think that solutions will come from top. I think the solutions will come, and we will really need to work on solutions right now. We have so many big issues, besides coronavirus, climate change. I mean, I just read a study, it was published in Nature, and it says in 10 years, the oceans will be dead. It's just kind of like the whole ecosystem will be gone. And in the 2040s, the same will happen terrestrially. I mean, that is kind of like, I mean, we're kind of looking at really, and that is not just some fringe idea, that was published in the most recognized scientific journal globally, that this will happen. If we need to drastically change our way, like today. We need to kind of get away. We need to grow our own food. I mean, we have to really regionalize. I mean, that's kind of where the Green Party started, like, I don't know, 30 years ago, is bioregionalism, I mean, we have to really kind of dig very deep in ourselves, in our ancestors, to kind of come up with those solutions. The solutions are not by big businesses, not by politics as usual. I mean, I have been giving up on the political system. I mean, like,
yes, you're not the only one.
You're not alone.
We don't have 10 years to go through elections, 2 years for running for office, and then maybe you make it, maybe you're not, and then you're kind of stuck in this kind of like system that does not produce results and that is not flexible. We kind of see that the political system has no flexibility to deal with the ever-changing kind of things. It's kind of, the governor is kind of doing okay, but I mean, they're not kind of providing us with the solutions of the problems for today. So it's kind of, I think we really have to rethink everything.
What do you guys think about basic? Thank you, Liane. What do you guys think about basic income in the COVID-19, universal basic income, like implementing that as an emergency?
Yes.
As an emergency income beginning right now, like we don't have to we don't have to have a whole lot of discussion about it. This is becoming our new normal, right? Like being at home and I don't know about you guys. I don't mind being at home so much, as long as my basic needs are met, like my refrigerator is full and I can, communicate through the internet and I can still, go to the store and things of that nature. I'm a hard time adjusting to being in my house. I was, because I'm disabled, and for the first 2 years I was disabled. I couldn't do anything on my own. So I'm not having a hard time adjusting to this, but what I am having a hard time adjusting to is the fact that we have to have money to sustain us while they continue to shut down our states. They're shutting us down with no money. So what do you guys think about an emergency implementation of universal basic income?
Well, we're already behind. We should have gotten a check about a month ago for purposes of making up for the income people have lost because of the pandemic. Definitely. I read a statistic that 1/3 of people nationally did not make their April 1st rent payment. And we've all seen the pictures, the photographs and videos of lines, like miles of cars lined up to go through food banks to be able to feed themselves. So, this check can't come soon enough. It needed to have come about a month ago when it was obvious that a lot of the economy would have to shut down in order for us to keep the outbreak down to a reasonable amount. But in other countries jumped right in and did that. Congress gave big bailouts to, cruise ships and airlines and corporations that have been buying back their own stock for the last 10 years. But now, we need a bailout or we're going to go under. And what Liana was saying about being able to print money, the Federal Reserve can create money. They just created a whole bunch of money and dumped it into the stock market right before the pandemic hit.
Yes, they did.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
could do that to bail out the people. But unfortunately, the highest bidders have bought most of the seats in Congress and certainly the White House. And so we don't have the people's voice in government anymore. And I can understand Leanna's cynicism about the only elected office I ever held before was I was a union negotiator for teachers. But Maine has ranked choice voting. So when some Greens called me up this summer and said, "Hey, Lisa, Susan Collins is super unpopular and we have ranked choice voting. What do you think? Would you run for the Greens?" I thought, well, yeah, I'm about to retire from teaching anyway. What the heck? We'll give it a try. See what happens.
Yeah, that's basically what happened to me. The president of the Green Party here said, Ilhan is very unpopular these days, and you've been out here. Why don't you run? Like, make some real change here in Minnesota. I think that we had proper, if we'd have had proper representation here in Minnesota, and someone who put Minnesota first and Minnesotans first, that we may have received our money a little faster. And then it's only $1,200 a month. My apartment here is $1,200 a month. So what do we, after I pay rent with this $1,200 check, how I'm going to eat, pay my car note, insurance, eat. I'm more fortunate than others in some ways because I am a disabled American and I worked since I was 14 and I put into my IRA and I was taught to just, put some money away and also receive Social Security disability. But after this, $1,200 for a normal person, for a person who has not worked all their life, for a person who living from paycheck to paycheck, and then their job just ends, and then rent is $1,175, $1,200 for a 2-bedroom apartment. There's no more money, and there's no money being proposed by the states. And Minnesota here, Liane, as you may know, and Darnella, Michelle, you may know, we had a surplus of $3 billion at one point. So there could be money directly from the state of Minnesota paid to Minnesotans right now. If we would have the proper representation supporting these ideas, the proper representation here in Minnesota, putting the people first. And so, yeah, we have to have those people in place that are going to genuinely care and want to see the people of their state live better and do better.
Definitely. Well, I have a question. Did you want to say something, Darnella?
What I was thinking about was the stimulus package and how, yeah, big business really did cash out, but it was kind of like now we could clearly see the blueprint of why we're asking for reparations. It's as if you understand COVID and the need for us to kind of bail out everybody right now. So it's like the compassion for me is showing through that now that we understand the importance of the circle that we're all in, that most of America didn't really understand why we're fighting for reparations because we have already been left behind. And a lot of people that owe debt, that was one thing that I didn't like, that I think that the politicians that are currently in seat should have protected everybody because of it being an emergency. Child support and things and back pay should not have been a factor to receiving those checks because that's how the gap is widened.
Yes.
Because they didn't receive those checks. They just said balances, new balances show, but it didn't reach the pockets or the homes of a lot of families. And that was one thing that bothered me. And it also bothered me that it wasn't as clear that we were going to get it was going to be a $6 trillion stimulus package instead of a $2 trillion stimulus package. The $2 trillion was for us common folks, and that $4 trillion was for the Federal Reserve, and they have the privilege to loaning us back the money with, they said 0% or maybe very low interest rates. So I'm thinking like this is a double whammy, and then we only get a one-time payment of $1,200, but this is going to ripple through our lives for quite some time.
Yes. Was there something you wanted to say, Michelle? You're shaking your head over
Yeah,
there.
I'm shaking my head because I just feel like America, this is the decline. This is the decline that, you know, all of us, a lot of people still don't want to face that America's economy is just gone completely down. I mean, how much is the dollar worth? They're creating all this money, you know, out of just creating it out of, you know, they don't have no backing of anything. And we're so in debt right now. I don't even think they're even giving the right debt numbers, because I looked at the debt, the national debt, and I think you put that on your website, Toya. I think it was like at 22 million before they decided to pass that $1 trillion CARE Act, okay? And then now I think it's only still showing 24, somewhere around 24 trillion. So, you know, I don't even think that they're even showing all the debt that America has. And,
Right.
and this is, I mean, that's a concern for me as an American, is that why are we so in debt? What we have to change the way things are going. So I think Liane makes very good points when you say that, you know, if you're gonna, you know, don't worry about the money, because no one is worried about the money. Obviously, we're so far in debt, you know. And so then the next thing is okay, let's care about each other. You know, I mean, and I guess my question is, how do you convince those capitalists or people in, you know, that are so focused on, you know, the way we have the system going now, they don't want to move to more of a socialist system like that. And that's how they view it. But I wonder if there could be something created that's kind of in between. You know what I mean? Both capitalist and socialist at the same time, so that Americans can feel that they're, you know, being cared for, so we can care more about the environment, the foods that we eat and everything else.
I'm
I
glad
don't
you
know how
talked
you
about
guys
the
feel about
environment.
that. Yeah.
You know,
So
today
that's
is
kind of,
Earth Day.
I mean,
Today is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Liane. Were you about to say
so I
something?
mean, that's kind of how you can like start it with the basic income, you know. I mean, that's kind of like my point, the basic income as a first step towards system change. So there's kind of like the best bill I have seen out there is by Ro Khanna from California and Tim Ryan. And they're kind of calling for $2,000 per individual per month, and for $500 per child up to 3 children. And what I like about their proposal is it's not just for US citizens, it's for everybody, you know, undocumented people, people who got stuck here because of the pandemic. So, I mean, if you have lived here since January 27th, you know, you would kind of get that money. And then if people have that money in hand, they can start organizing in their local communities. You know, I think, you know, what is kind of maybe really crucial is to think about the food supply, you know, and clean water, you know. So we kind of really need to really think about what is kind of really necessary, because I don't know how the economic system will be holding up, you know, like in 6 months or a year. I'm thinking quite a bit about supply chains, you know, especially the very high-tech things, like when you just think about building a car, how many different components do you have, and where are the components all coming from? You know, we will see, like, if there's kind of like some filter missing for that modeling of this car, you know, can that car be built? And I mean, we're seeing that. I mean, the whole system is not very flexible in kind of producing anything, you know. I mean, like with the PPE, we kind of seeing that. It's not, the capitalist system is not flexible enough to respond to crisis, you know.
Right.
So the more flexible, the more local, I would kind of think. You know, we need to really kind of think how can we take care of ourselves from the grassroots up, like in the local community and in bioregions. And I think we should be really concerned about maybe food. I mean, maybe you have heard about all the meat packing plants getting closed down. you know, and then further downstream, I just saw in the newspaper in Minnesota, there was a farmer, he was on the contract, and people just came in and slaughtered 61,000 chickens, you know, because they didn't need the product anymore, because it was like egg mass for like some industrial purpose they didn't need. So they just came in and just kind of did the 61,000 chickens, slaughtered them. I kind of saw about, you know, now the hog farmers, the pig farmers, they cannot send their pigs anymore to the meat packing plants because they're kind of closing down, you know. So it's like, so it's kind of, this is just meat. Like, I mean, how will that kind of trickle down like in a few months, you know? And we are hearing that this crisis will take about 18 months, you know, I mean, before we have some vaccination. So we kind of, I mean, we will be in this year, we will not get out of this, and we will not get back to normal. So I'm kind of very afraid about supply chain. So I think if you kind of give people money in hand right now, and then I think we all need to get very creative, you know, just to kind of make it through the next 18 months or something, because I don't think otherwise government, besides them able to give us money, I don't know how well they can take care of us. I'm not really kind of thinking that I will be taken care of by the politicians or by capitalist system, you know, I mean, like, what are they kind of seem to be in these times very incompetent, you know, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and obviously they are not able to do that, you know, so we really need to relocalize, I think.
You know, as we were speaking, I was thinking about the fact that today is Earth Day, and that, you know, the current situation is affecting our social justice and climate change, social climate change. So I asked myself, I said, well, what is environmental justice, right? And environmental justice, as we know, is an intersection between social justice
Toya,
and
I hear echo. You guys hear echo? Yeah. There's a really bad echo there. I don't know.
In my house, there I don't have anyone here in the room with me. I don't know.
Okay, let's try it again.
Can you hear me now?
It's better.
It's better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think it was you, because you muted your mic.
That's what I was curious about, but
Yeah,
I muted it now.
You muted your mic, so I think it was on your end, Michelle. So we so we know that, you know, it's environmental justice is an intersection between social justice and climate change. And what has happened with this in the pandemic with COVID-19 is that it has hit the lowest income families first. So what do you think, Liane? And I keep going back to you, because you are the UBI expert on the panel. What do you think that universal basic income would do to help those families in this COVID-19 during this pandemic? Because the pandemic has reduced thousands of unemployed people, but we already had thousands of unemployed people in our lowest of income communities, correct? So how will UBI affect those people in just a couple of minutes? How can you?
I think it's kind of like, I mean, the first effect is kind of taking stress away from people, you know, I mean, just kind of like, if you have enough money to cover your like essential bills, you know, I mean, then you can just relax, you know. I think like the lack of money is producing so much anxiety and stress in people. They cannot really think, you know, normally, and it kind of makes them very susceptible to other kind of illnesses, you know.
Yes.
So this is kind of like, first of all, the stress will go away and people can breathe, you know, kind of just stop and kind of like breathe. And then they can start taking care of themselves, you know. I mean, I think this is kind of like, we need to all kind of start taking care of ourselves now, you know, like kind of what do we need, and then reaching out to our networks and family and community or something as much as we can reach out. You know, some people, they can just connect with their family, that's fine. Some have closer friends, and just kind of like see how we can help each other and what can we do to kind of take care of ourselves. And start also, and I think local businesses, that is kind of like what really needs to be saved is the local businesses, and those are kind of really at the cusp of kind of just kind of going away and just leaving the field to the big corporation like Amazon and whatever, as we really need to kind of protect the small businesses that are local, because they know how to source local things. And I think it's individuals, families, their communities, and local businesces. I think we need to circle the wagon, circle the wagons and kind of moving outwards, So this is kind of, but I think we kind of really need to, take care of our own health and well-being right now. Yeah. So you see, so.
Yes, thank you, Liane. Okay, so Lisa, like I keep saying, because I'm excited about Earth Day, like I'm just a big Earth Day person. But what do you feel? I want to ask the two candidates, and Lisa, I want to ask you first. How do you feel about the Green New Deal?
I'm a big fan of the Green New Deal. Before I decided to run for office, I was an anti-war organizer, and especially climate and militarism the last several years, pushing for the conversion of, the biggest employer in my state builds warships for the Navy. That's all they build. And we're always told that's a good jobs program. It isn't a good jobs program. It would generate far more jobs, like 50% more jobs, if they were instead building clean energy systems, or like the light rail train systems for commuters that we do not have in my state. And a Green New Deal would also, Liana has mentioned this several times, have a focus on locally producing the energy that you need, and locally sourcing the energy and making decisions about how to use the energy. Right now we have a situation where people generate the energy by like flooding Indigenous people's lands in Canada. Then they sell that electricity thousands of miles away, crossing down to a big city like Boston. It's very inefficient. It doesn't benefit the people at all. But we have local utilities next to, like, the town near us has its own electric grid, and they have better rates, and it's lots more reliable in storms. So a Green New Deal to me would include not only conversion of our weapons building, all we really export in the U.S. now is weapons.
Yes.
Things that hurt people. And wouldn't we all rather be building something that would make us healthier and create more jobs for people, and make the world a better place, instead of how much more force do we need? How much more violence do we need in order to understand, like, this is making the world worse, not better?
Well, Lisa, I want you to be my senator. I do. Darnella, in just a couple of minutes, take a couple of minutes and tell me how you feel about the Green New Deal. Then, as we're wrapping up, I want you all to give your information, Liane. I really would like people to know how they can get more involved with you and your grassroots work in the universal basic income. So go ahead, Darnella. What do you think about the Green New Deal?
From what I understand, I would one thing that stands out to me is for the municipal utilities to be owned by the people. I think that is very smart. I know right now that when I think about the stimulus package, back to the stimulus package, I realized that they did themselves, they did their buddies, and they also allowed social services to be funded for the sake of helping us. But when you think about who owns the utilities, we are, I think, exacerbating what was that, capitalism. And I was thinking one way that we could kind of, like you said, blend socialism with the capitalism is when the coronavirus quarantine is over. I think everybody should have got the same amount of a grant or loan. It shouldn't have been 44,000 for 3 restaurants. It is just crazy. But I think if they would have kept it balanced and the little people were thought out, that you would see a balance of socialism and capitalism, because with the universal basic income, everybody has a choice of where they're going to spend their money. And what business is sustained is ultimately going to be the community that sustains them.
That's
So
right.
it's going to turn out to be a what do you have to offer bartering kind of society where we kind of depend on each other. And that's okay, because right now capitalism is winning and we're all investing into their pot and we don't even really have a say so on it. So something like municipal utilities owned by us means those little small prints at the bottom of the bill, we would understand why this $6 is added. And we are actually, like I talk to people from across the country and they say, you know, America runs their country like every person that has utilities in their house, they run their country as if you guys are stockholders. Our utilities are too high for us to be customers. So that's something that I kind of listen to like, wow, we really need to think about the intricate, because I'm connected to Excel Energy by way of using Excel Energy. So I'm worried about their overhead. And I want to know, did they receive a large stimulus, because they should be able to give us discounts on our utilities instead of us actually even going to ask for social services. So it's like the big people need to start taking care of the little people, because it's our combined dimes that make their dollars. You know, that's
Yes.
what I
You
think.
know, they're not gonna, we have to continue the fight. You know, we can have to continue with grassroots democracy. We have to continue to listen to the people. We have to continue to protest. We have to continue to lobby. We have to continue to create bills that will change things. They're not just gonna look out for the little people. It would, in an ideal world, it would dwindle from the top to the bottom. But like Liane was saying, it's not gonna dwindle. It's gonna come from the ground up. We have to work. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to learn how to take care of each other so that we can build a better economy, a better nation, a better country for ourselves. Because if we have to wait on the wealthiest of the 1% to take care of us, then that is never ever ever going to happen, because the rich want to stay rich and they want the poor to stay what? Poor all the time. So we have to continue to fight. Because this every day, everything that we get, everything we receive as a country, as a democracy, as individual states and communities, is a fight. We have to be prepared to stand up for our truth, speak our truth, and stand on the fact that you promised us some things. You said that we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. So if we're the people and you want to form a more perfect union, then make sure that the people are getting their needs met. And if you're not going to do it, then we the people are going to take our voices to the places that will get us to make sure that we are getting our needs met. I'm not going to wait on big business or big government to take care of me, and we're going to do it for ourselves. We the people, right? So we have a few minutes left. We got like a couple of minutes left. Well, we can do it, go as long as we want to, but I don't want to hold the ladies hostage, because Darnella, you and I sit here and talk for 2 hours. Right? So I don't want to let them hold. I'm really grateful of Miss Liane and Lisa's time. So I don't want to hold them hostage. But what I would like to do in closing is any last remarks. Would like to hear how to get involved in with your organization, Miss Liane, and your campaign, Lisa. Michelle, tell us about Bob's, and Darnella, then I would like you to tell us about your campaign and how to reach out to you. So, Liane, if you could start, that would be great.
Yeah, so I have been involved in a group called Big MN, Basic Income Guarantee Minnesota. So we have been advocating for a basic income for about 5 years now, and we have tabled and talked to individuals and organizations about basic income. So you find us on Facebook, but it's very important to for everybody to get informed about basic income. There's a big push globally to get basic income instituted, because, that's kind of seemed to be the only solution. Just kind of follow up on the media, what is kind of being proposed, and support the good bills. As I said, the Rokana bill is really good. It's emergency money for the people bill. So if you can write to your representative to kind of support that bill, and just kind of be outspoken about basic income in general.
Yeah.
So that will be very interesting. But yeah, we're big in Basic Income Guarantee Minnesota.
I promise you that I will be speaking out loud and proud, and I might possibly contacting you. It's part of my platform now.
That's wonderful. Yeah, if you have any question, if anybody of you wants to talk to me more about basic income, that's kind of, I've been thinking about basic income for like 5 years, and I know a lot what's going on internationally, who is working on what, and then also what individual people are wanting to use the basic income for. It kind of really, that you can use basic income in order to do this thing or this thing, so I kind of can evaluate who has what kind of position, and what the dominant narrative is, and what a better narrative could be and should be. But this kind of pandemic is kind of really providing a good chance for making a basic income a reality, because there's no alternative. It has to come. So and then there's kind of like a fight of kind of keeping it too, not just as an emergency measure, but for continuing basic income. So it's very important for everybody to get informed on basic income and know what kind of your position around that is, But I really think it has to happen,
I do. So thank you so much, Liane. Lisa, tell us about you, how we can get in contact with you, how people can vote for you, join the fight,
Thank you for asking, and thank you for inviting me today. It was very lovely to meet all of you, and I love to be with a group of women that are feeling like taking care of people instead of, how to get theirs and forget what happens to anybody else. My company is called Lisa for Maine, with the 4 spelled out, FOR, and Maine has an E on the end, and then it's .org. So that's my website. And then all the social media stuff also is, our YouTube channel is Lisa for Maine, and so on. We welcome, of course, donations. We welcome volunteers. We have volunteers from all over the country, actually from even outside the country. And you can connect with those opportunities through the website. And also just by liking and sharing posts that you agree with and that resonate with you on social media, whatever platforms you're using, that's super helpful to get the word out. So thank you so much for inviting me to Minnesota today.
Thank you for coming. It was lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You should move to Minnesota and become my senator.
Well, if I do get elected, I'm going to be running against 2 very corporate candidates, because the Democrats will also nominate someone who has taken millions of dollars already from big corporate interests. I feel like if the people of Maine elect me in ranked choice voting, then, I'm a senator for all the people, because the Senate serves all the people. So
yes, that's what I like. That's what I like to hear. Someone who is focused on the people, because it's not about us. Mm-hmm. It's about the people. And so I thank you for coming out. I thank you for sharing. I would like to invite you back sometime in the future, both of you, if that's not a problem. Have you back on, because I have so many things that each one of my shows is going to be talking about part of my platform, and I'm pretty sure that there are some other questions or some other things I would like to discuss with you, and you be a part of the discussion. So I would love to have you both back on at some point. What about you, Michelle? Tell us about what you're doing and how we can get involved and what's going on with you.
Well, I'm not going to take up too much time discussing Bob. Bob, you can go to our website, which is bobrewards.club, COUB, rewards with an S at the end. And you can learn more about who we are. You can take out a membership. We are a national organization for Black-owned businesses to change some of the part of business that we have problems with, of course, is marketing, advertising, and all that other sort of thing. So we are also Toya Woodland's campaign management PR firm, okay? And so we are helping her out on her campaign. And I think it'd be a good idea, Liane, if you can send us an email, which that email address is Toya, at Woodland for 5thdistrict.org. If you ladies could please send, connections and links to your websites, because I didn't quite hear Leanne's website clearly. But we would love to put that down. And we do have a page that we're building for Toya. Going to be focused on income. And so that would be wonderful. We can have that. And that same thing for you, Darnella. And I just want to thank everybody for, joining us. And, we can have this again. I would love it. Okay? Because everybody needs to know how you feel on issues. And if you're running for Congress or Senate, or if you're an activist, your voice does matter.
And thank you for this platform, Michelle. Thank you for
Yeah.
allowing us to this platform so that we can share our opinions and views with all of America, like it's from anywhere. Darnella, tell me about yourself. What are you doing? Where can
I
I support you at?
yeah. I kept it really simple. I was proud of the Green Party, so my website is www.darnellagogreen.org. And that really just started because about 20 some odd years ago, I was kind of woke up by the Clinton welfare cuts, and I had little kids, and I was like, this is me against the world. And I became a member of the Welfare Rights Committee, and it's really easy for me to stand behind the universal basic income because I was fighting for the grants to be raised, and I really was feeling disenfranchised when the grants were completely taken, and my state of poverty was more prevalent than air. I'm like, we was never supposed to be cut off, and I looked at poverty like it was a for real entity to fight. So I'm running for state rep. I'm of District 65B in St. Paul, Minnesota. I am the co-chair of the 4th CD Green Party in St. Paul, the 4th CD congressional district. I run a nonprofit. My son was shot. He's a survivor. Um, I run a nonprofit called Black Truths that I bring gun violence prevention and awareness. And I am a mom of 4. I have 5 grandchildren. And I really put myself out there because, well, 2 reasons. If Donald Trump can do it, anybody can do
Anybody
it.
can do it.
Okay?
It's a pretty
And the
low
other
bar.
part is for them to actually try. I don't have I do have 20 years lobbying experience, but what I do have is the will to implement a quality of life policies. And if people join in on the fight and the movement, I think each one of them can be completely implemented. So I'm just a voice in the wilderness, and really letting people know that your representative should represent you. And I
Right.
think I'm one of them people. I'm
Thank
an
you, Darnella,
ordinary
for
folk.
coming on. I love you.
We're gonna
Um,
vote for you, Darnella.
I am Minister Toya
Thank
Woodland.
you.
uh, you're right. Donald could do it. Anybody can do it. Okay. I'm Minister Toya Woodland. I am running for U.S. Representative in the 5th Congressional District here in Minnesota. Um, I often say that I'm a preacher and not a politician, and not that I don't. And what I mean by that is that my heart is I have the heart of a preacher. I am actually a preacher, but I have the heart of a preacher. I have the heart of the people, and I understand why we need representation here in the 5th Congressional District in Minnesota. Our current representation is not representing us, and it's really been prevalent here in the pandemic. It has really shown itself, especially in the African American community, and in all communities outside of and mostly all of the communities here in the 5th Congressional District. Our current representation has been more focused on foreign policy, and foreign affairs, then putting Minnesota and Minnesotans first. We have to have universal basic income here in Minnesota first. We need clean water here in Minnesota first. We need universal health care here in Minnesota first. We need to restore the voters' rights here in Minnesota first. So we need some things first, and we need somebody in office that's going to put the needs of our people first. I can put the needs of the people first because I am the people. I know how it feels to be homeless. I know how it feels to be disabled. I know how it feels to have to live from paycheck to paycheck. I know how it feels to have to be healthy one day and lose it all the next. I understand that. So, and by knowing that, I have the plan and the mission to put my people first, put my Minnesota first, put my constituents of the 5th Congressional District first. We need someone who's going to look at us and say we should come first for a change. We haven't come first here in Minnesota for quite a while. You know, we need to come together as one Minnesota, not a black Minnesota, not a white Minnesota, but one Minnesota.
Green.
And put Minnesota first. So that's why I'm running. You can reach me at www.woodlandforcongress.com or www. I'm coming there. I got 2 active websites. I'm paying for them both. Or www. At Woodland for 5th Congressional District .org.
5thdistrict.org.
5thdistrict.org.
Wow.
So I have woodlandforcongress.com and woodlandfor5thdistrict.org. Either one you can reach me. My email address is Toya at woodlandfor5thdistrict.org. So yes, you can reach me there, and I have, or you can call me. I think my phone number is on my Facebook page, Woodland for Congress. And also, as Lisa was saying, those things that you see that you like, support, volunteer, donate. I take donations from all over the world. I am not prejudiced with it. So I just thank you guys for coming on. I thank you guys for being here, and I am again. I enjoyed the conversation, and I look forward to talking to you ladies again.
Thank you. You guys have a wonderful
Thank you.
Happy
Have a
birthday.
good evening.
Have a good evening. Bye bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks.